Hi, my name's Annabelle and I'm an artist and illustrator. Create a self-portrait with me. I have created 4 self-portraits for my birthday throughout the years. My 16th, my 18th, my 20th and my 21st. I'm turning 23 and have spent the last week creating a new illustration. I really enjoy making them as it's such a good way to see my progress throughout the years and see my art development from technical skills to compositional. For this video, I'm breaking down the step-by-step process I went through to make this illustration, from a mood board to making my reference to the illustrating process. When creating a mood board for this illustration, I wanted to include more of my illustration compositional skills. I decided that since it was for my birthday, I would include my birth gemstone and my birth flower, an aquamarine and a daffodil. I also like the idea of the portrait being framed, so I knew that I could include those into that design. This is my mood board. The illustration in the middle is from my 21st, and the other images I found on Pinterest. Using my chosen references for my portraits, one of me when I was 3 and one of me last year, I removed their backgrounds on Photoshop and then placed them together. Then using the Pinterest images, I cut out the details that I wanted to include and created a composition to frame around the portraits. I worked between both Photoshop and Procreate as some of the details I didn't have a reference for, and it's much easier to draw on my iPad than it is on my laptop. When I was happy with the layout, I then began editing some of the colours and the lighting. For example, I changed the bow from pink to blue, and because I had 2 different images of daffodils, I had to slightly adjust them to match each other a bit better. This is my final reference. From my reference, I now needed to create my base sketch. Going to Procreate on my iPad, I use the 4B pencil brush and I start by roughly tracing frame composition before going back in and sketching some of the details. Then, making the 6B pencil a little bit thicker, I very roughly drew in the shapes of the portrait. I use the transform tool to adjust features that aren't quite right. When I had it sketched, I then used the reference layer beneath to see just how accurate the features were, and then I used that to further adjust them. Then, on a new layer, with the rough sketch slightly lowered in opacity, I then made the brush thinner again and started sketching the portraits out in more detail. I'm constantly checking against the reference to make sure that it was accurate. This is my final sketch. When I create digital illustrations, I like to have a colour rough, as I find it hard having any and every colour. I use the colour picker on my reference and choose relevant colours, and then I block them into the sketch. It ends up looking something like this. On a layer below my sketch, I like to create a base layer using my colour rough. I chose to use the gouache brush in Procreate as I like the texture and the application and how I can layer and build it up. I make the brush fairly big as I'm not too concerned with the detail and I'm trying to be fairly quick with the application. I then will go on a new layer, make my brush slightly smaller and roughly begin to render the face. This is how it looked when it was finished. Now I was ready to render. I make a new layer, this time above the sketch, and I go back to the 6B pencil. I wouldn't normally, but I also decided for this illustration I'd use the smudge tool to help blend the colours into the base layer. I then keep building it up, adding layers, adding colours, changing my brush size, moving on to the frame, and bringing in some of my regular colours from the Procreate colour palette. I finish with the small details, trying to tie all the elements from the frame to both the portraits together. After over 8 hours, this is my finished self-portrait. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you liked my finished self-portrait and found the step-by-step of my process helpful. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more art videos. You can also find me on Instagram and TikTok for more creative content. I will see you soon. Bye!